I didn't know the moment my life would fracture into, before and after would begin with a single Instagram post. Not a phone call, not a confession, not even catching him in bed with someone else. Just a photo, a carefully framed dessert, a caption that smiled while it stabbed. 4 days ago, my life was still intact. I was 25, sitting on my couch after work, counting down the minutes until my boyfriend arrived. We were supposed to spend the night together. Takeout boxes spread across the coffee table, a movie half watched, his arm draped lazily over my shoulders like it always was. It was nothing special, and that's what made it sacred. Ordinary happiness, the kind you trust without checking the locks. Ryan never showed up. Instead, I found him across a table from his ex-girlfriend, smiling like the man I thought I knew had never existed at all. I remember the exact second my hands started shaking. My phone felt too heavy, like it was pulling me downward. The room went quiet in that eerie way it does right before something breaks. My heart didn't race. It dropped, as if my body understood the truth before my mind was ready to accept it. Dinner and movie night, just like old times. That was the caption. Old times. I reread it again and again, hoping I'd misunderstood, hoping my eyes were wrong, hoping the man in the blurred background wasn't Ryan, my Ryan, who was supposed to be on his way to my apartment. But it was him, and suddenly, every unanswered text, every call that went straight to voicemail, every minute I'd spent worrying that something terrible had happened to him, twisted into something far worse. That photo was only the beginning, because what came after wasn't just betrayal. It was lies layered on lies, a wedding that turned into a nightmare, hands gripping my arms too tightly in a hallway full of strangers, my name dragged through group chats, a man who didn't just cheat, but refused to let go when I walked away. I'm sitting alone in my apartment now, trying to understand how 5 months of love turned into fear, how someone can swear they'd never hurt you because they've been cheated on before, and then do exactly that. I didn't know the night would cost me my relationship, my sense of safety, and half the people I thought were my friends. All I knew was that one photo changed everything. And once I saw it, there was no going back. 5 months isn't a long time in the grand scheme of life. It's not a marriage. It's not a mortgage. It's not children and anniversaries and shared bank accounts. But 5 months is long enough to build a routine, long enough to let someone's toothbrush live in your bathroom cup, long enough to start picturing holidays, little mental snapshots you don't even realize you're collecting until they're torn away from you. And the cruelest part is, Ryan and I didn't feel like a fling. He felt safe. I'm 25. I work a steady job. Busy enough that my weekdays blur together, structured enough that my brain craves something warm and human at the end of them. I'm the kind of woman who shows up. I keep plans. I text back. I remember details. I'm not dramatic by nature. I don't enjoy chaos. I've always believed love should feel like peace. Two people choosing each other over and over, even when life gets loud. So when I met Ryan at a friend's housewarming party, I wasn't looking for fireworks. I was looking for real. It was one of those crowded, casual nights where people are balancing paper plates and plastic cups, laughing too loudly because they're trying to make strangers feel like friends. I almost didn't go. I'd been tired. My hair was in that half-dried state that makes you feel unfinished. And I remember standing in front of my mirror thinking, I could just stay home. Nobody would miss me. But I went, and Ryan was there, leaning against the kitchen counter like he belonged in the center of the room, but not in an arrogant way. More like he was comfortable. His eyes kept scanning faces, not hunting attention, just taking in the world. When we got introduced, he smiled like he actually meant it. Not the polite grin people flash because it's expected. A real smile, the kind that reaches the corners of the eyes. We ended up talking in that small pocket of space between the fridge and the snack table, and the conversation didn't feel forced. It flowed, easy, like my brain didn't have to perform. He asked questions about my work, what I liked, what stressed me out, what made me laugh. And when I answered, he didn't immediately turn it back to himself. That detail matters now, because it's one of the reasons I trusted him so quickly. He made me feel listened to. By our third date, it was almost inevitable. We'd done the normal things, coffee, dinner, a walk that lasted longer than we planned, because neither of us wanted to end it. And after that third date, he asked, casually but clearly, "So, are we doing this for real?" I remember laughing, partly from nerves and partly because it sounded so simple. "Yes," I said, "we're doing it for real." And for the next 5 months, it felt real. He brought me soup when I mentioned I was getting sick. Didn't ask, just showed up at my door with a grocery bag and that look that said, "I've got you." He remembered the tiny things, the way I hated cilantro, the way I liked my coffee, the show I'd mentioned once that I wanted to start. He held my hand when we crossed streets, not possessively, just naturally, like it was the most normal thing in the world to want to stay connected to me. When I introduced him to my roommate, Alicia, she liked him immediately, which isn't something she does often. Alicia has sharp instincts. She's the kind of woman who can smell dishonesty from a mile away, the kind who says, "I don't trust him," within 5 minutes if she gets even a weird vibe. But she didn't. After he left one night, she had raised her eyebrows at me and said, "Okay, he seems genuinely nice." I remember feeling proud, relieved, like my judgment was validated. Then there was the topic that I now realize was the cornerstone of his performance, Vanessa. Ryan brought her up early, not right away, not on the first date like someone trying too hard to prove they're over it, but soon enough that it felt like honesty instead of secrecy. We were in his car after dinner one night, parked outside my building because neither of us wanted to end the night. The streetlight outside cast a pale glow across his face, and he looked serious in a way I hadn't seen yet. "I should tell you something," he said. My stomach tightened, because that sentence always carries weight. He told me about his ex-girlfriend, Vanessa. They'd dated for almost 3 years, and they'd broken up about a year before he met me. He said the relationship ended because he found out she'd cheated on him with a coworker. I remember the way his jaw clenched when he said it, the way his fingers tightened around the steering wheel, like the memory still made his body angry. "It messed me up," he admitted. "I don't think I realized how much until later." And then he said the thing that made me drop my guard. I'd never do that to someone. Those words matter because I believe them. I believe them because he spoke like someone who knew that pain personally, like someone who would rather cut off his own hand than inflict it on someone else. He explained that they still shared the same friend group, so he had to see her sometimes. But he told me, clearly, "We're cordial, that's it. I don't hang out with her alone. I set that boundary after the breakup." A boundary he set. Not something I had to demand. Not something I had to fight for. That felt healthy, mature. It made sense. I even related to it. I'm still friendly with one of my exes too. Nothing intimate, nothing secret, just the kind of respectful distance that comes from acknowledging the past without living in it. So I respected Ryan's boundary, and I appreciated him for having one. When he introduced me to his friends about 2 months in, Vanessa was there. I remember the moment I first saw her. She was pretty in a polished way. Hairstyled, outfit effortless, the kind of confidence that looks like it's been rehearsed. But she didn't act territorial. She didn't glare. She didn't make sharp comments disguised as jokes. She was polite, almost distant. And that made me relax. Because if there was lingering chemistry, I thought I would feel it. I thought I would see it in the way they looked at each other, in the way their bodies leaned, in the tiny subconscious signals people can't fake. But I didn't see it. Or maybe I didn't want to. Ryan stayed attentive to me that whole night. He touched my lower back when we walked through crowds. He kept checking in with me. "You okay? Want to leave soon?" Like my comfort mattered. I went home thinking, this is good. This is steady. This is safe. And that's how it stayed, until the week it didn't. We'd both been busy with work, and we made plans for Wednesday night. Simple plans. My place. Around 8 o'clock p.m. Takeout, movie. We confirmed it several times through the week in that casual way couples do. "Wednesday still good?" "Yep. Can't wait." "Me too." Nothing dramatic. Nothing suspicious. Just normal. And that's why, when Wednesday came and Ryan didn't answer my texts, I didn't immediately think he was cheating. I thought something bad had happened. Because when someone has earned your trust, your brain goes to fear before betrayal. You worry about accidents, emergencies, crises. You don't think he's at dinner with his ex, smiling like I don't exist. Not until the truth is shoved in your face by a photo you never asked to see. Wednesday didn't feel ominous at first. It felt quiet. The kind of quiet you don't question because nothing bad has ever come from it before. I got off work at 5:30 p.m., right on time, and stepped outside into that end-of-day haze where your shoulders finally drop and your brain switches from professional to personal. I remember checking my phone as I walked toward my car, already picturing Ryan sprawled on my couch later, complaining about how tired he was, stealing fries from my plate even though he'd swear he wasn't hungry. I texted him casually, "Heading home. Want me to grab anything?" No response. That wasn't unusual. Sometimes he got caught in meetings or buried in work, and I'd hear back a little later. I didn't think twice about it. I put my phone in my bag, drove home, and started changing into something comfortable. Something cute enough that I wouldn't feel sloppy, but soft enough that I could curl up and relax. By 7 p.m., I checked again. Still nothing. I called him this time, expecting it to ring once or twice before he picked up with an apology already on his lips. Instead, it went straight to voicemail. I frowned at the screen, my thumb hovering there longer than necessary. That's weird, I thought, but still, not alarming. I sent another text. Hey, are we still on for tonight? No response. I tried not to spiral. I told myself his phone must be dead, or he'd left it on his desk, or he was driving and didn't want to text back. All reasonable explanations. But as the minutes ticked by, that tiny voice in the back of my head, the one that whispers things you don't want to hear, started clearing its throat. By 8:30 p.m., Ryan was officially late. I was sitting on my couch now, TV off, takeout menus spread across the coffee table like props waiting for a scene that wasn't happening. I checked my phone again, still nothing. I called him once more, and again it went straight to voicemail. This time my stomach tightened. This wasn't like him. Ryan wasn't the kind of person who forgot plans. He wasn't flaky. If he was running late, he'd tell me. If something came up, he'd explain. Even on his worst days, he didn't disappear. That's when my thoughts shifted. What if something happened? My mind raced through worst-case scenarios with frightening efficiency. A car accident, a family emergency, a sudden hospital visit. I imagined him hurt somewhere, his phone lying dead and unreachable, and guilt started creeping in for being annoyed instead of concerned. At 9:15 p.m., hunger finally forced me to move. I hadn't eaten because I'd been waiting for him, and now my body was reminding me that heartbreak or not, it still needed fuel. I grabbed my jacket and walked to my favorite little restaurant a few blocks away, telling myself I'd just get something quick and come back. In my rush, I left my phone on the kitchen counter. At the time, that felt insignificant. When I came back about an hour later, the first thing I did was reach for my phone. Nothing. No missed calls, no texts, no explanation waiting for me. I asked my roommate, Alicia, if Ryan had stopped by while I was out. She shook her head. No, haven't seen him. You okay? I forced a smile. Yeah, just weird. But inside, something twisted. Ryan had never stood me up before, not once. And the longer the silence stretched, the less my earlier explanations made sense. If his phone had died, he would have borrowed someone else's. If there was an emergency, he would have found a way to reach me. Unless, I didn't finish the thought. I didn't want to. Instead, I picked up my phone again and opened Instagram. Not consciously, not with a plan. Just muscle memory. Just scrolling. The way you do when you're anxious and don't know what else to do with your hands. And then I saw it. Vanessa's post. It had been uploaded earlier that evening. The photo was beautifully composed. A fancy dessert, plated perfectly, soft lighting, everything about it curated to look effortless. The location tag read Tivera, a restaurant I recognized immediately because Ryan had told me, more than once, that it was his favorite place in the city. My eyes dropped to the caption. Dinner and movie night with @Ryan, just like old times. I stared at it, not fully processing what I was reading. Then I noticed the background. Slightly blurred, but unmistakable. Ryan, sitting across from her, elbows on the table, smiling. The timestamp said 5:45 p.m., more than 2 hours before he was supposed to be at my apartment. My hands started shaking so badly I had to sit down. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't a phone dying unexpectedly. This was a plan. He hadn't just broken our plans. He had replaced them. And the version of Ryan in that photo didn't look distracted or stressed or caught off guard. He looked relaxed, happy, like a man exactly where he wanted to be. I scrolled down, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. There was a comment from Marcus, one of our mutual friends. Just one line. A simple reaction that somehow made everything worse. Vanessa hadn't replied. I put my phone face down on the table and pressed my palms into my thighs, trying to breathe. My chest felt tight, like there wasn't enough air in the room. He had told me he never spent time alone with her. He had told me that was a boundary. He had told me he'd never hurt someone the way he'd been hurt. And yet, here he was, turning his phone off so I couldn't reach him, sitting across from the woman he swore was in the past, smiling like nothing else mattered. I went to bed that night feeling physically sick, not crying, not screaming, just staring at the ceiling, my stomach churning with a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. Because even then, part of me still wanted an explanation. I still wanted him to tell me I was wrong. And that, more than anything, is what breaks my heart now. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the image replayed itself. The soft glow of restaurant lighting, the curve of the dessert plate, Ryan's smile across the table from Vanessa, like he hadn't made plans with me at all. My body felt heavy, like gravity had doubled, pressing me into the mattress while my thoughts refused to settle. When morning finally came, it didn't bring relief. It brought 5 text messages, all from Ryan, all sent around 6 o'clock a.m. I stared at my phone for a long moment before opening them, my heart pounding like it already knew the words would hurt. Hey, babe, I'm so sorry about last night. I completely forgot we had plans. I was watching Better Call Saul with Vanessa and fell asleep on her couch. My phone died and I didn't realize until I woke up this morning. I feel like such an idiot. Can you forgive me? Let me make it up to you. Sushi tonight. Just you and me. I love you. I read them once, then again, then a third time, slower, letting each sentence sink in. I completely forgot we had plans. We had confirmed them multiple times. I was watching Better Call Saul with Vanessa. Alone, the thing he swore he never did. My phone died. At her place, with outlets, with chargers. The story was polished. Almost believable if you didn't already know the truth. My chest tightened, anger finally cutting through the numbness. Not the explosive kind, but the sharp, focused kind that comes when something doesn't add up and you know it. I didn't respond right away. I sat on the edge of my bed, my feet flat against the floor, grounding myself. I replayed everything he had ever told me about Vanessa, the way he framed himself as the wounded one, the way he positioned his boundaries as proof of his integrity. Then I typed a single question. Did anything happen between you and Vanessa last night? His response came almost instantly. No, of course not. I would never do that to you. I stared at the screen, my jaw clenched. Would never. He had already crossed the boundary he swore he wouldn't. He had already lied, by omission, by silence, by turning his phone off. And yet he still expected me to believe that line. I didn't accuse him. I didn't explode. I knew I needed to see him in person, needed to watch his face, hear his voice, feel the energy in the room. So I told him I wanted to talk after work. He agreed immediately and suggested a coffee shop near my office, like he was eager to smooth things over before the lie had time to rot. I spent the entire workday distracted. Emails blurred together. Meetings passed without me remembering what was said. My thoughts kept looping back to the same questions. How long has this been going on? Was I the rebound? Did he ever actually stop loving her? By the time I arrived at the coffee shop, my nerves were shot. Ryan was already there. He looked awful. Dark circles hung under his eyes. His hair was unstyled. His shoulders slumped like he'd aged overnight. He stood up quickly when he saw me, trying to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Hey, he said softly. I sat across from him without returning the smile. I need you to tell me exactly what happened last night, I said. My voice surprised even me. Steady, controlled. He launched into the same story from his texts. Dinner turned into watching Better Call Saul. He fell asleep. His phone died. I listened without interrupting. Then I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. Vanessa's Instagram post was still there. I watched his face change as he recognized it. His eyes flicked away, his mouth tightening. Why? I asked quietly. Were you having dinner with her when you told me you never spent time alone together? He hesitated. It was a coincidence, he said. We ran into each other at the restaurant. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't react. I just pointed at the caption. Dinner and movie night. That doesn't sound like coincidence. He backtracked immediately. Okay, it was last minute. She texted me. We're just friends. I leaned back slightly, folding my arms. And the comment from Marcus? That did it. His face fell, his shoulders sagged. He knew he'd been caught. What followed was an hour-long unraveling. At first, it was half-truths. Yes, he had made plans with Vanessa. Yes, he knew he was supposed to see me later. Yes, he turned his phone off, just in case. Then came the part he tried to swallow back down. Yes, he finally whispered, his voice breaking. Something happened. He admitted it like a confession dragged out of him, piece by piece. They had slept together. He swore it wasn't planned. Swore it was a mistake. Swore he forgot about our plans because he got caught up in the moment. He started crying right there in the coffee shop, his hands shaking, his voice cracking as he told me he loved me and didn't want to lose me. People stared. I didn't. I stood up. I gathered my bag, my coat, my dignity, whatever I could still carry, and walked toward the door. Ryan followed me, still talking, still pleading, his voice rising with desperation. Please, just listen. I'll do anything. I swear. I didn't turn around. As soon as I got home, I blocked his number. I removed him from every social media account. I erased him from my digital life like pulling out a splinter, painful but necessary. For the next few days, everything felt unreal. I'd never been cheated on before, at least not that I knew of. The betrayal didn't explode. It seeped in slowly, poisoning everything. The memories, the routines, the trust. And looming over all of it was my brother's wedding. This Saturday. I was supposed to stand there smiling, celebrating love, pretending my heart wasn't in pieces. The irony was cruel. If Vanessa hadn't posted that photo, I might never have known the truth. His excuse might have worked. I might have forgiven him. Instead, she put it out there, knowing I'd see it. And that knowledge, that she wanted me to see it, that was a different kind of pain. The days after I blocked Ryan blurred together in a way I still struggle to describe. I wasn't crying all the time. That came later. At first, I felt hollow, like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped something essential out, leaving behind an echoing space that made every movement feel exaggerated and wrong. I went to work. I answered emails. I nodded in meetings. But none of it felt real. At night, I sat on my couch with the TV on low volume, watching shows I wasn't actually following, spooning ice cream straight from the container because it was easier than pretending I had an appetite. Every few minutes, my brain would try to reach for my phone. Muscle memory, instinct, before remembering there was no one to text anymore. That realization hit me over and over, each time like a small bruise pressed again. I kept replaying Wednesday night in my head. The way I waited, the way I worried, the way I imagined him hurt somewhere while he was sitting across from another woman, smiling. That part hurt more than the cheating itself. Not just that he betrayed me, but that he let me worry, that he let me care. I kept asking myself questions I didn't want to answer. Was I stupid? Did I miss signs everyone else could see? Was I just convenient until she was available again? I hated how quickly my mind turned against me, how easily I started auditing my own behavior, my own choices, like I was on trial for trusting the man I loved. By the second day, the numbness cracked. That was when the anger came, not explosive, not loud, but sharp and precise, the kind that settles in your chest and stays there, humming. I talked to my friend Megan that evening. She was part of Ryan's friend group, but over the months, she'd become my friend. We met for dinner, and I told her everything. The unanswered calls, the Instagram post, the confession in the coffee shop. Her reaction was immediate. "Oh my God," she said, eyes flashing. "I knew it." That sentence made my stomach drop. "Knew what?" I asked. She hesitated, clearly choosing her words carefully. Then she sighed. "Ryan and Vanessa, they have a pattern. They break up, they swear it's over, and then 5 or 6 months later, they fall back into each other." My hands tightened around my glass. "You're kidding." "I wish I was," she said. "People in the group have joked about it before. Not because it's funny, but because it's predictable." 5 months. The same amount of time Ryan and I had been together. I felt sick. Megan went on, explaining that some people in the group had quietly suspected something might happen again. No one had said anything to me. Not out of malice, but out of that cowardly instinct people have to avoid conflict. "I'm so sorry," she said. "You didn't deserve this." I believed her, but it didn't undo the damage. Saturday came too quickly. My brother's wedding. I put on my dress, did my hair, painted a smile onto my face, and told myself I could get through one day. Just one. I was a bridesmaid. I had responsibilities. I couldn't fall apart. Not here, not now. The ceremony was beautiful. Sunlight filtering through tall windows. Soft music. My brother's face when he saw his bride. Pure, unfiltered joy. For a few hours, I almost forgot. Then, during the reception, I stepped away to use the restroom. I took a quieter hallway on my way back, grateful for the brief escape from noise and small talk. That's when I saw him, Ryan, standing at the far end of the hallway in a full suit like he belonged there. My blood ran cold. He wasn't invited. My brother had met him once, barely knew him. There was no reason, no excuse for him to be there. Before I could turn away, he started walking toward me. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice low but firm. "I need to talk to you," he said. "I can't accept that this is over." I felt a spike of panic. "You need to leave, right now. If you don't, I'm calling security." He ignored me. Instead, he grabbed my arm. Hard. The grip startled me so much I froze. His fingers dug into my skin, and when I looked up at his face, what I saw there made my stomach twist. This wasn't remorse. This was desperation, obsession, something unsteady and frightening. "I can't live without you," he said, leaning closer, trying to kiss me. I turned my head away. "You need help," I said. "This isn't love." That's when he broke down, sobbing loudly, still holding on to me as if I were something he could physically keep. People started to notice. I tried to pull away. He held tighter. And then, like a lifeline, someone stepped in. Devin, a groomsman and an old friend of my brother's, appeared beside us. He assessed the situation in seconds, gently but firmly prying Ryan's hands off my arms and placing himself between us. He spoke calmly, authoritatively, telling Ryan this wasn't appropriate, that he needed to leave. Miraculously, Ryan listened. Devin walked him outside, called a cab, and waited until it arrived. When Devin came back, he asked if I was okay and suggested we not tell my brother until after the honeymoon. I nodded, grateful beyond words. That night, when I finally got home, I stared at my arms and saw faint bruises forming where Ryan had grabbed me. And that was the moment it fully sank in. This wasn't just a breakup. This was something darker. And I knew, with a clarity that scared me, that I could never go back. The morning after the wedding, my body ached in ways that had nothing to do with dancing in heels all night. The bruises on my arms were faint but unmistakable, yellowing at the edges, tender to the touch. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror longer than usual, staring at them, replaying the moment Ryan's fingers tightened, like he thought if he held on hard enough, reality would bend. It scared me how quickly love had curdled into something unrecognizable. I called Ryan's sister that afternoon. During the months I'd dated him, she and I had gotten along well. She'd always been kind, grounded, someone who didn't excuse his bad behavior, even when she loved him. My hands trembled as I explained what happened at the wedding, choosing my words carefully, not to demonize him, but to be honest. She went quiet for a long moment. "Thank you for telling me," she finally said. "That doesn't sound like him, but it also doesn't surprise me." She promised she'd check on him, said she was concerned, said she was glad I was safe. For a few days after that, things were quiet. Too quiet. I started to believe, naively, that maybe the message had landed. Maybe Ryan had finally understood that there was no path back to me. I focused on work, on helping my brother pack for his honeymoon, on pretending I wasn't constantly looking over my shoulder in public spaces. Then the calls started. An unknown number, late at night. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. On the 3rd call I answered, my pulse racing. "Is it true?" a woman demanded. It was Vanessa. She didn't give me time to speak before launching into a stream of accusations. According to her, Ryan had told her they were officially back together. He claimed that I had approached him at the wedding, that I had tried to seduce him, that I was obsessed and refusing to let go. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. When she paused for breath, I spoke calmly, steadier than I felt. "That's not what happened," I said. "He showed up uninvited. He grabbed me. He tried to kiss me. He had to be removed." Silence. I told her everything, briefly and factually. I suggested she reconsider trusting someone who could lie so easily, and hung up before she could respond. The next morning, Megan texted me. "The group chat is a mess." She sent screenshots. Ryan was telling everyone that I'd been stalking him since the breakup, that I'd fabricated the cheating story because I was jealous of his friendship with Vanessa. Vanessa backed him up. My name was being dragged through conversations I wasn't even part of. What struck me most wasn't just the lies, it was how convincing they were. Ryan had spent years building trust with these people. I was the newcomer, the easiest one to doubt. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to win. But I couldn't live with my reality being rewritten. So I sent a calm, factual message to the 3 people in the group I trusted most. I attached the Instagram post. I attached a screenshot from the wedding venue's security footage showing Ryan there, uninvited. I didn't editorialize. I didn't beg. I just told the truth. The responses were mixed. Some apologized immediately. Others accused me of stirring up drama. A few stayed neutral, saying it was between us. That was when I understood something painful and important. Truth doesn't always win quickly, and sometimes it doesn't win at all. I decided to step away from the group entirely, except for Megan and one other person who had stood by me without hesitation. Protecting my peace mattered more than correcting every false narrative. Then came the development that finally pushed me from uneasy to afraid. Ryan showed up at my old apartment. I wasn't there. My roommate, Alicia, texted me as soon as he left. He came by with flowers, said he just wanted to talk. When she told him I'd moved out, he didn't believe her at first. Asked to see my room. She refused and threatened to call the police. Before he left, he slid a letter under my door. 6 pages long. Alicia sent me photos of it. The letter swung wildly between apologies and blame, between declarations of love and accusations that I'd overreacted. Most disturbing were the detailed descriptions of our intimate moments, written like memories he wanted to trap me inside. It ended with a promise. I'll never give up on us. That was the moment I knew this had crossed into something dangerous. I filed for a restraining order the next day. The process was exhausting, invasive, and far more complicated than I expected, but the pattern was clear. The cheating, the wedding incident, the uninvited visit, the letter. 2 weeks later, I stood in court, my hands folded tightly in my lap, while Ryan sat across the room with a lawyer, claiming I was exaggerating out of spite. But I had proof. Screenshots, witness statements, security footage, the letter. The judge granted a 1-year restraining order. No contact, no proximity, legal distance where emotional boundaries had failed. As I walked out of the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Relief, not closure, not peace, but space. And sometimes space is the first step toward healing. The restraining order should have made me feel safe. On paper, it did. Ryan was legally required to stay away from me. My home, my workplace, my life. The judge's words echoed in my head like a protective spell, something solid I could hold on to. But fear doesn't disappear just because a document says it should. For the first few weeks after the order was granted, I slept lightly. Every sound outside my apartment made my body tense. Footsteps in the hallway, a door closing too hard, the buzz of my phone vibrating in the middle of the night, even when I knew no one could contact me anymore. I had moved into a new place in a secured building across town. My brother and his wife had insisted, helping me pack essentials while my old life was still scattered in boxes. We didn't give the address to anyone except immediate family. I installed extra locks, a camera doorbell, window sensors. Some people would call it overkill. For me, it was survival. The emotional aftermath was quieter, but heavier. The adrenaline faded, and what was left behind was exhaustion. The kind that sinks into your bones. I went to work and smiled when I needed to. I laughed at jokes that didn't land. I answered, "I'm fine," so many times it lost meaning. At night, though, the questions came back. How did I not see this? How did love turn into fear so fast? What kind of person lies this convincingly? The most painful part wasn't missing Ryan. It was mourning the man I thought he was. The kind, thoughtful boyfriend who brought soup when I was sick. The man who talked about boundaries and honesty like they were sacred. The man I trusted enough to let into my routines, my bed, my future. I grieved him like he had died. And in a way, he had. The truth, revealed slowly through friends, through Vanessa, through the unraveling of his stories, was devastating. Ryan had lied about his past. He hadn't been the betrayed victim in his relationship with Vanessa. He had been the one who cheated, repeatedly. The narrative he fed me, his trauma, his moral high ground, had been carefully constructed to lower my guard. That realization shattered something fundamental inside me. If I could be so wrong about him, how could I ever trust my judgment again? There were days I couldn't stop replaying the wedding incident. The grip on my arms, the look in his eyes, the way my brother laughed 10 feet away, completely unaware that his happiest day was inches from turning into something ugly. I started seeing a counselor around that time. Not because I felt broken, but because I knew I was standing on the edge of becoming someone I didn't want to be. Bitter, suspicious, closed off. In one session, I finally said out loud what I'd been afraid to admit. "I don't miss him," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I miss who I was before him." That was my darkest moment. Not fear, not anger, loss of self. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to shift. The nightmares stopped first. Then the constant hypervigilance softened. The sound of keys in the hallway stopped making my heart race. I started sleeping through the night again. I reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from during the relationship. I signed up for a photography class I'd been putting off for years. I started noticing small joys again. Sunlight through my window, good coffee, the comfort of routines that were entirely mine. I wasn't healed, but I was no longer drowning. And that's when something unexpected happened. The truth, fully exposed, finally caught up with Ryan. The first thing I learned in the aftermath of everything was this. You don't need revenge for truth to do its work. It took time, far longer than I wanted, but eventually, the narrative Ryan had spun began to collapse under its own weight. Marcus was the first domino. He was the friend who had commented on Vanessa's Instagram post the night everything unraveled, the comment I'd tried not to read into. the comment that haunted me because it hinted at how obvious the situation had been to everyone else. One afternoon, weeks after the restraining order was granted, he reached out. He didn't call. He didn't ask to meet. He sent a long message. He admitted that he had seen Ryan and Vanessa together multiple times over the past few months, always in situations Ryan had told me didn't exist. Lunches, movie nights, coincidences that happened far too often to be accidents. Marcus said he hadn't spoken up because Ryan had convinced everyone that any tension between us was due to my jealousy, that I was insecure, that I knew about his time with Vanessa and pretended not to care. I assumed you knew, Marcus wrote, and I assumed you were okay with it. I stared at that sentence for a long time. The gaslighting didn't stop with me. It rippled outward. Marcus apologized, sincerely, more than once. And while his apology didn't erase the past, it mattered that he finally told the truth, publicly. That was the turning point. Once one person spoke up, others began to reevaluate. The whispers that had once worked against me started working for me instead, quietly, subtly. Ryan stopped being the wounded hero in the story. He became the common denominator. The friend group fractured, not because of anything I did, but because people couldn't reconcile who they thought Ryan was with what he'd actually done. And then Vanessa reached out. I didn't want to meet her. Every instinct told me it would reopen wounds. But after talking it through with Megan and setting firm boundaries, I agreed to meet in a public place. She looked tired, thinner than I remembered, dark circles under her eyes. The confidence she once wore like armor had cracked. She didn't waste time. I'm not with him anymore, she said, and I'm sorry. She admitted that their rekindled relationship had turned toxic almost immediately. Ryan became controlling, jealous, accusatory, checking her phone, questioning her movements. Everything he claimed he hated. She apologized for believing his lies about the wedding, for helping spread his narrative. And then she told me the truth I hadn't known, the one that rewrote everything. Ryan hadn't broken up with her because she cheated. She caught him with another woman. The story he told me, the trauma, the moral clarity, the vow to never hurt someone like that, was a fabrication, a role he played convincingly enough to gain my trust. Hearing it didn't bring satisfaction. It brought clarity. We weren't rivals. We were survivors of the same manipulation. We parted civilly, not friends, not enemies, just two women who understood, finally, that none of this had been about us. That night, sitting alone in my new apartment, something shifted inside me. For the first time since Wednesday night, the photo, the silence, the betrayal, I didn't feel small. I felt grounded. I realized that I hadn't been naive. I had been honest. I had trusted someone who presented himself as trustworthy. That wasn't a flaw. That was a strength he exploited. The power I reclaimed wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet. I stopped checking social media. I stopped replaying old conversations. I stopped wondering what I could have done differently. And I made a decision. Ryan no longer got access to my story. The collapse of Ryan's carefully built image didn't happen all at once. It unraveled slowly, thread by thread, until there was nothing left for him to hide behind. Once Marcus spoke up, others followed. Quiet confirmations at first, then shared experiences, stories that suddenly made sense when placed next to mine. The lunches with Vanessa, the harmless movie nights, the half-truths that only looked innocent when viewed in isolation. The friend group never had a dramatic blow-up. It fractured. People stopped inviting Ryan to things. Conversations went quiet when his name came up. Invitations became conditional. Trust, once lost, didn't return. Vanessa left the city a few weeks later for a new job. She said she needed a clean break, and I believed her. Not because she was innocent in everything that happened, but because staying near Ryan would have meant continuing the cycle. Ryan tried to salvage what he could. According to Megan, he oscillated between remorse and self-pity. Some days he claimed therapy had changed him. Other days he insisted he'd been misunderstood, unfairly punished for a mistake. But the damage was done. His sister distanced herself. His mother stopped defending him. The people who mattered most, the ones who had believed his version of events without question, were forced to confront how easily they'd been manipulated. The restraining order stayed in place. Ryan's lawyer sent a formal apology letter months later, requesting I consider lifting it. The letter was carefully worded, polite, empty. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Meanwhile, my life, quietly, steadily, began to expand again. I found my rhythm in the new apartment. I rearranged furniture until the space felt like mine. I hosted small dinners with friends who had proven they were safe. I laughed more easily, slept more deeply. I reconnected with my brother after finally telling him what happened at his wedding. He was furious, not at me, but at the fact that he hadn't been there to protect me. He insisted on installing additional security measures at my place, calling them a housewarming gift. For the first time, I let myself be taken care of. Devin, the groomsman who had stepped in that night, checked in occasionally. No pressure, no expectations, just a quiet, steady presence. We talked over coffee, walked through parks, took things slowly. What mattered most wasn't that Ryan lost friends or reputation. It was that I left without becoming someone I didn't recognize. I didn't smear his name, I didn't retaliate, I didn't beg to be believed. I told the truth when it mattered, and then I walked away. The truth had done the rest on its own. 3 months after everything fell apart, my life finally felt quiet again. Not empty, not numb. Quiet in the way a calm room feels after a storm has passed. When the windows are closed, the debris has been cleared, and you can finally hear yourself think. The restraining order did its job. Ryan stayed away. According to mutual acquaintances, he moved to a different part of the city and kept a low profile. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need updates. His absence was the point. The friendships that survived the chaos grew stronger. Megan became part of my weekly routine. Coffee, long walks, conversations that didn't revolve around trauma anymore. I met new people who knew nothing about the wedding incident, nothing about Ryan, nothing about who I used to be. They knew me as I am now. I started trusting my instincts again, not recklessly, not blindly, but respectfully. My counselor called it recalibrating my normal meter. Learning that discomfort is information, that peace isn't boring, that love doesn't require confusion to be real. Devin and I began dating slowly, carefully. He knew everything. He never pushed, never minimized, never tried to rush healing into a timeline that served him. And that mattered more than grand gestures ever could. There are still moments, songs on the radio, restaurants I once loved, when memories surface. But they no longer pull me under. They're just echoes now, reminders of a chapter that shaped me, not one that defines me. What this experience taught me isn't that people are untrustworthy. It's that manipulation often wears the costume of vulnerability, that some people tell you exactly what you want to hear, not because it's true, but because it gives them access. I learned that boundaries aren't cruel, that leaving is sometimes the bravest form of self-respect, that you don't owe forgiveness to someone who refuses accountability. Most importantly, I learned that trusting someone who lies isn't weakness. Staying when the truth is clear, that is. I didn't lose 5 months of my life. I gained clarity. I gained resilience. I gained myself. And if you're listening to this while doubting your instincts, while wondering if you're overreacting, while waiting for someone to prove they're who they say they are, trust what you feel. Document everything. And remember, peace is the loudest confirmation you'll ever get. This chapter is closed. And for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to see what comes next.